Um, Take the Money and Run was 1969. That's coming up on, well, 50 years roughly in a couple of years. What what and you've been making a film a year, averaging a film a year, so you're coming up on 50 films. What has most changed about just the day-to-day filmmaking or marketing, any aspect of it, from when you started till now, and what remains most consistent?
Well, the business has changed. Filmmaking is the same. I do the same thing now as I did on Take the Money and Run. I go in the morning, and instinctively, actually, you have a vision because you wrote the script, so you know what you want on the screen, and you execute to try and get as close to that vision as possible. You never really come that close to it, but you die trying to get as close as you can. So the process is the same, and you learn a little bit over the years, but you don't learn much because it's not a scientific process. Filmmaking is instinctive, and the little bit you learn over the years, is not really very helpful, little helpful. But the actual business, when I first started making films, they were putting out, all these modestly budgeted or reasonably budgeted films, and they were good stories. Bonnie and Clyde came out, and The Graduate came out, and I mean all those films that were aimed at adults and often sophisticated adults, and they were intelligent, and there was a vibrant film industry. Easy Rider came out then, and I mean a million films, all the Hal Ashby films, and so that kind of has drifted away slowly and slowly. The studios realized they would be better off if they spent $100 million making a film, because if that worked, they could make $1 billion or a fortune. Whereas if a film like Five Easy Pieces works, they could make whatever, $100 million or $50 million, which became peanuts in their eyes. And so all these wonderful kind of interesting films and adult film, grown-up films, kind of faded away, and you get a couple of them during the year, but most of the film industry centers around making comic book movies and blockbuster movies, and I'm not criticizing them because that's where they make these big fortunes, but I'm more interested in the cinema I grew up with, which were European films and more sophisticated American films, and films where a reasonable adult could go into the movie house and sit down, spend a reasonable amount of money, buy a ticket, and watch something that wasn't insulting to the intelligence or was either amusing or dramatic or thrilling or scary, but on a generally adult and sophisticated level. You don't get that in the same quantity anymore. You get some of it, but you don't get much of it. And that's what's changed. And it's been a tremendous kind of a change, a seismic change. As far as making films, no. I think if you asked, Scorsese or Francis Coppola, people who are making wonderful films, then they would say they're doing the same things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be all about the opening weekend now, and if they determine that the people who go to a film during the opening weekend are young people and they want to see comic book movies, then that's what gets made. But then, exceptions do sneak through.
You notice in the newspapers, they print the box office as news.
Yes.
And that's not why you make the film. Well, that's why the studios make the films. It's for them an industry. But the filmmakers are making the films not to crash the box office, they're making it because they want to make, hopefully, a work of art at the far end, but at least a decent film, or at least in my case, a not embarrassing film. And so that's what you want to make, something reasonable. And the news of the week should revolve around the quality of the film, not its box office. That's peripheral or really, distracting.
I'm going to take another question from our comments section just to prove that we really are live and taking questions from our viewers. This is from Matt Bussey, who wants to know, you've expanded your shooting locations from New York to London to Paris, etc. What city would you love to film next?
It's hard to find cities. I first expanded by going to London because I couldn't get the money and the freedom together. I always, when I make a film, I like the people backing the film, sometimes it was studios, to put the money in a brown paper bag and then go away. And then, 6 months later, I give them the film. And that's the way I've always been able to work. Having complete control of every aspect of the film. I wouldn't work in the film business in any other way. I would stop working in films if I didn't have that. And so it came to a point where the studios would say to me, look, we're not banks. If we make the film, if you're asking us for $10 million or something, $12 million, we want to read your script. We want to know who you're casting. We want to have some input. We're not just bankers. I, on the other hand, regard them as at best bankers, if not criminals, but bankers anyhow, at best. And I said, no, you can't read my script, and I'm not interested in your input. I said this politely. I'm not interested in your input. You can't come to the set. You can't see my dailies. You can't see anything till I give you the film. No, I said this nicely. And they said nicely, get lost. So I went to England, and in England, they said, we'll give you the money, and we're bankers. We don't care about input. That's all for the studios. We're bankers. So they bankrolled Match Point. And I made it the way I always make my films, with complete control. No one was near me. And then I found they wanted me to come back and do another one. And then I got a call from France, and I got a call from Spain, I got a call from different countries, Italy, saying, we'll give you what you want. You make a film here, make a film in Rome. So I was riding high. I was going to the great capitals of the world, taking my family. We would spend the summer there, living high off the hog, and I'd be making the films that I wanted to make. Then we found some suckers in the United States who were willing to play ball with me and put up the money and let me make the films exactly as I've always made them. And so I came back to the United States, and I've been bankrolled the proper way. Now, so when anyone ever talks to us about filmmaking, we say, look, here's what you're getting into. You can give us the money to make the film. We appreciate that. But you will not see the script. You won't know who's casting. You won't see dailies. Yes, you can come and visit the set once or twice. If you call us, we'll pick the days. But you won't have any real connection. Now, this doesn't sound like much fun to people, and yet there are people out there that do find that fun. And the fun that they get out of it, I think, apart from, their conscience feeling that they're patrons to someone that they believe in artistically, which in this case, laughably, is me. They patronize me like the Medicis did, and I'm able to make my film. And the fun they get out of it is we let them come to the opening night party where there's free catering. And we let them come to the Cannes Film Festival if we enter the film, and we let them, and they see their name on the screen, and we, and there is a modicum of excitement to the, the little perks that they garner from this procedure. But apart from that, they do get some kind of thrill or some kind of satisfaction, not thrill, but satisfaction out of bankrolling, in this case, me, but in other cases, other people, to do their art. They like my films, and they want to help me continue making them. And so that's the only way I make them. Now, if that closed down and no one would bankroll me without looking at my script or saying, well, we'd like to have a few changes or we want to tell you who to cast, I just wouldn't make films. I'd write for the theater, or I'd write books, or, or do my nightclub actor. And it has nothing to do with being a control freak or anything. It has to do with you have a vision when you do something, and the guys in the suits don't have the faintest idea about what's good or what's not good, or what will play or what won't play, or what's good acting or what's good storytelling. But many of them feel they do when they don't. Now, I don't have any talent or connection with numbers, with investments, with money. I'm the worst at that, and so I don't go to them and say, I wanted some input here. I'm going to tell you where to invest your money and what stocks to buy and when to sell. And they shouldn't come and tell me anything about my film, because I know nothing about their thing. And they know, but the difference is, in many cases, they do think they know. It's like everybody thinks he can play the drums. They can't come up and play the clarinet or the piano or something, but they see a drum set and they know they can do this. So they all run up and try and play the drums. It's the same thing with the movie. They all think that they can tell a story, or they know what's funny, or they know, who's pretty or who's talented or who's, and so you don't want to have anything to do with them, but you can't treat them contemptuously, as I am doing in this little spiel here.
None of them are watching, I'm sure it's okay.
You have to try your best to con them, and most of the time you can't, because they're smart. And then once in a while you find someone either with a good heart who wants to back an artist, or someone who is silly with their money and just likes to give it out and lose it on films, and that's how I've survived for many, many years without ever getting into that hit flop syndrome. I could make 3-4 films in a row that don't make any money and still, go on and make my next film, because one, I'm working inexpensively, so nobody gets crippled by the amount of money I lose for them. Maybe they lose a few bucks, but usually not. Usually they break even or make a few dollars. They don't get rich either. It doesn't matter if I have a hit or by hit or flop. I'm talking box office strictly. I'm not in that game. I'm in a different game. I make films for different reasons. So I've been very lucky, and with that attitude of accepting whatever limitations I have to accept, I've been able to last and make many films and make them the way I want for many years.
Well, here's another question that's come in on our comment section. It's from Amazon Studios. They want to know, hey, jerk, who do you expect to finance your next film? Ooh, that's got to hurt.
Well, I think Amazon is a perfect example of a company that's so successful that someone like me is peanuts. It's chump change. These guys make billions. They're worth billions and billions and billions. So I come along and I make films for a pittance, so they can reach in their pocket, give it, and they give it to him and shut him up. And I make my film, and if it makes a few dollars, you don't even notice it on an Amazon, ledger, yeah. And if it loses a few bucks, they couldn't care less. And so, and the people up there like the quality of my work. They like the films. Not everybody does, but they do. So, so they give me, they feel no pain with me. So they're happy to give me the money and let me do my thing. Maybe I'll give them a nice film, and if I don't, they don't notice the hurt, and they move on to the next film, and maybe that'll be better. And over the years, I've had a pretty decent record. If you had bet on me from Take the Money and Run on till now, bet on each of my films, you would have made money. Now, you would not be rich, but you would have made money over the years, because most of them, in one way or another, have eked out a profit. Some have not, but those that have not been devastating. So a company like Amazon, they're so rich, and that falls under the rich patron of the arts sucker group.